Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Monday afternoon. I am still so far behind, but I'm gonna go right into my next video, which we're gonna talk about an organization or a group of like-minded friends that just got together and joined and started this weird, I don't even know what you would want to call it, not a healthy organization. And it all started back in New York with this guy named Keith Raniere. Yes, we're going to talk about NXIVM. Now, if you are a HBO subscriber, if you have HBO Max, if you have HBO on cable, do people even have cable anymore? You should know that there is a show currently airing called The Vow on Sunday nights. We are 6 episodes in, and I'm not sure how many total episodes there are, but it goes into sort of the inner workings of this organization that Keith Raniere started with his friend Nancy so many years ago, which promised to be an enlightening experience that you could bring your friends in and recruit. A pyramid scheme of self-help, kind of like Scientology and kind of like, I don't know, Tony Robbins, sort of. Anyways, Keith was this nerdy guy that had glasses and a slight frame that did not appear to be very like the kind of guy that everybody would want to be around, but yet somehow he became the vanguard of this group, and the group somehow became and turned and twisted into this very strange thing that happened and sort of went into the media back in 2017 when Sarah Edmondson, a former member, exposed this group for having a women's group that basically was like his harem of ladies. But the Vow is going into sort of the workings of it. So you're meeting, you know, Sarah and all of these other players that were a part of this group, and really the steps that they took in order to get Keith Raniere held and responsible for what he was doing within this organization, and ultimately led to his eviction. So if you have HBO, I highly suggest you check out The Vow. But this is interesting because it's been over a year since Keith Raniere was actually convicted. Now, if you are unclear or unfamiliar with this group, it was sort of like this multi-level marketing group where you would take a self-help class, and then you would get a scarf, and then you would become a teacher, and then you would have to recruit people, and then those people would have to recruit people, and then they would have to recruit people, and you basically earned these little like sashes all the way up, and you talked about things like not being a victim and having power over your brain and not thinking negative thoughts and having really profound conversations and playing a lot of volleyball. Yeah, that's right. Keith really loved volleyball. Weird, like a weird sort of thing I was not expecting in The Vow. The Vow takes you very inside sort of like the mindset, how people got so roped in, people that just really wanted to do good things in the world, and somehow that devolved into this really creepy group that decided that there was going to be a women's enlightenment group, right? Where all of the women in the group, some of the highest, the best, the brightest, would be selected for this group called The Vow. And these ladies combined together would have a work relationship where one person was another, so it was the master and they would dictate what they could eat, what they could say, what they could do, where they would go, and they had to ask for how many calories they ate. People that were outside of this group noticed that the girls that were in the group, or the women that were in the group, were eating less and less, becoming very sickly, frail. Allison Mack was one of the leading ladies of this group, sort of next to Keith Raniere, recruiting women into this organization. Now, the problem is that when it was sold to them by whoever their master was, they had no idea that Keith was at the top. And as they got deeper and deeper and deeper, they were told to give collateral, meaning they would have to give secrets to this group, like pictures or videotapes or videos of them saying things about the people that they loved, or secrets that they didn't want anyone to know. And the more collateral they would give, the more accolades they would get, and the better, higher up they could go. They also needed to recruit people in to have their own people to tell them what to eat, what to do, and how to do things. Yeah, I know. But as they got further and further up, they realized that not only did they have to do all of these weird things, they had to give all this collateral. Well, then it turns out they had to, like, you know, get his initials put on their bodies. I'm not even joking. And it was his initials along with Allison Mack's, sort of inverted. So as they got more invested and more involved, some of the girls were sort of told that they needed to have relationships with Keith, and he had to be enlightening them through, you know, putting things inside of things. Yeah. So apparently the Vanguard had all these good things and he would enlighten them by getting down and dirty. All right. So there was, when all of this came out, Sarah Edmondson does this entire like expose on the New York Times, which by the way was an amazing article and sort of went into the detailing of what these women sort of went through. There was a lot of allegations of women being forced into situations of things that they didn't want to do, touching by people that they didn't want to be touched by, coerced into doing things they didn't want to be coerced into doing, forced work, human trafficking, money laundering. It became an utter mess. And Keith was front and center in all of this, using millions of dollars from heiresses of the Seagram's fortune to fund a MLM, essentially, into a cult that was all about getting busy with him. And then, yeah, anyways, eventually he ends up getting charged with a zillion different crimes along with Allison Mack and his co-conspirators. So he ends up getting convicted and he still has not yet been sentenced. But it's bizarre because he was convicted of all of these racketeering, trafficking, conspiracies, all of this. He is facing life in prison, right? And yet none of them have actually been sentenced yet. Claire Brofman is supposed to be sentenced this week. She is expected to get around 5 years. Allison Mack has not yet been sentenced. Keith Raniere's sentencing is actually coming up in October on the 27th. And as a part of that, he and the prosecuting attorney, or the district attorney, the U.S. attorney, his attorneys and the U.S. attorneys have a very different sort of understanding of where they want to go in this. So the U.S. attorneys want him to spend the rest of his life behind bars because they say that he is still manipulating people behind the scenes, using his leaders, his followers, to still try to do things like they're trying to they're going to start a podcast to prove that the judges, the police departments, the feds, the attorneys, every single person, all of the people, the naysayers that spoke out against them, they're all in a giant conspiracy and that they got it all wrong. Keith wasn't doing anything wrong. They are just framing him. He was trying to make the world a better place and it just got a little sidetracked. Whoops, my bad. Okay. So they say that he is calling people, trying to coordinate all of these podcasts. Then last week, they get a bunch of letters from these guys that basically show that they're trying to do this expose where they're going to expose them and they're going to hold them accountable for not doing proper justice. So they say that this, combined with his complete inability to accept responsibility for what he's doing and the list of all of the horrible things that he's done, they want him to spend the rest of his life behind bars, which if you followed the trial, he deserves, in my opinion, to be put behind bars for the rest of his life. But Keith, for his part, has it all. He's got his whole thing twisted. He actually, in the documents filed in court, in federal district court in New York, he actually says that he was a really successful business person and that he just didn't really mean for it to get as bad as it was. He didn't directly try to hurt people. He was, just trying to help the world and things just got a little bit off kilter. Yes, that's what you talk about when you take in people and you put their initials by their friends. So they say that this is what it says. Mr. Raniere respectfully maintains that this trial was fundamentally unfair and in violation of the rights assured him and all the defendants by the U.S. Constitution that they should have been granted a new trial now due to the accumulation of prejudicial errors and due process violations, including those coming to light since the verdict. He also maintains that he did not harm anyone intentionally, yet he has seen how a once wonderful, loving, close-knit community of people genuinely motivated to bring about positive change in the world has been destroyed by a handful of people who have lied to newspapers, media outlets, prosecutors, juries, and have caused others to lie as well. So he's basically going to blame Sarah and Vincent and all of the whistleblowers here that have exposed what they're doing, minus all of the records that have proven this and the documents and everything that the evidence that this group had. It's those guys. They're all a bunch of liars, right? He says that to the extent that Mr. Raniere brought about a community of people that was vulnerable to such a destruction, he is truly deeply sorry that he participated in this. This is not what he intended, but he's mindful of the people he has let down. He is mindful of the people whose lives have been upended by the events depicted by the trial. And however, he is not sorry for the way in which he lived his life. He is not sorry for his conducts or his choices. Rather, he maintains that he lived mindfully and carefully, and that he had made deliberate choices often to the input of others. And even on the day of judgment, he stands by the life he's chosen to live. So he stands by the ladies getting those things put down here. He stands by this whole DOS thing, this whole master and slave thing. He stands by that all. It was just a big misunderstanding. Another thing is that his lawyer was like, you know, he wouldn't have needed this group to get busy because he already had all of these ladies that he had long-term relationships with. So why would he need this group to get busy? Yeah. Sounds like they were just like drunk on power, to be honest. And Allison Mack as well. Just they wanted to do something evil. So they basically say, listen, he didn't mean for it to happen. Everyone else is a lying liarson. There's nothing that we've done that's wrong. We're not sorry for what we've done. Please give me only 15 years in prison. And then it's like 30 pages of just talking about what a magnificent life he had. Minus the fact of all the damage he's done to these people, the lies, the money he's stolen, the amount of women that have been harmed by him, the amount of relationships that have been harmed, the amount of money that's been stolen, the amount of intimidation that was used by individuals within this group to silence any of the people that were speaking out. And he still stands firm that it was all a big setup. Even with a glaring amount of evidence, this man still can't just admit he was wrong. So his sentencing is going to be in the end of October. And after I'm watching this vow, we're on episode 6. This last episode was really about after the New York Times story hits and getting the stories out about how people are manipulated, how they get involved in these organizations, and really understanding who he hurt. It's clear that these people are not lying. It's clear that these people were deeply impacted. It's clear that these people are so still impacted by what he's done. And yet he's literally sitting in jail trying to get a podcast started to frame the prosecutors and all of these people for doing a giant conspiracy. So it's everybody else's fault but Keith's. I don't understand these leaders. And they still maintain somehow, while they're incarcerated, their ability to lead people. It's like how Warren Jeffs is still leading people behind bars, and Charles Manson still had people following him. It's unconscionable to me that people still believe that this man is a good person after all of the evidence that's been put forth about him. So do you believe, Keith, that he just didn't know and he didn't mean to, and he could totally have got it on with all of these ladies if he did it, if he wanted to? He didn't need this group for that. So that whole allegation is just bogus. Or do you believe the prosecutors that he is a danger to society and never should walk the face of this earth as a free man again? I'm going to go with the prosecutors on this one. What do you think? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.